Welcome again to part 3 of the circulatory system or the transport in animal. This part, it's that we're going to look at the blood. We're going to look at the blood and what it's made up of. The blood is made up of different components, and we're about to describe those components that the blood is made up of. Now, first and foremost, the blood is made up of several different kinds of cells. The blood is made up of several cells, different types, like the red blood cells, the white blood cells, the platelet, the plasma, and so on and so forth. The blood is made up of different types of cells that can flow in a liquid. These cells can flow in a liquid, right? Now, this liquid is called the plasma. The liquid part of the blood is called the plasma. The liquid part of the blood is called the plasma. Is that okay? So we want to look at the blood now, the components that makes up the blood one after the other. We want to look at them one after the other. So the first component that we're looking at, or that we're going to itemize in this class, is called the red blood cells. It's called the red blood cells. Now, what are red blood cells? What are their functions? What do red blood cells do? What are red blood cells and what do they do in the blood? What are their functions and functionality of the red blood cells in the blood? Okay, so this is the first part we're looking at, because we know the red blood cells is super important in our body, or in the blood system, or in the circulatory system. So now let's take a look at it. The red blood cells are found in the blood, as we've described. Okay, they're found in the blood, right? And some of them, they are one of the smallest part of the blood. The red blood cells are one of the smallest part of the blood, right? The white blood cells are bigger than the red blood cells. Okay, they're one of the smallest in the human body, actually, not only the blood. The red blood cells are one of the smallest cells in our human body. Right now, and they're round. They have like a disc shape, and because despite the fact that they have a disc shape, it looks as if we've scratched them with our fingers and our thumbs. So for that reason, though they're round, they're like disc. They're round like this, and they're like disc. But they have a hollow inside them. They have hollow, as if you scratched the middle of them. Okay, the bloods are here. We should have even designated with red. Okay. Then they have this. The middle looks as if it has been scratched. Okay, hole has the pairs on it. Okay, these are red blood cells. Now, for these reasons, they are called the biconcave disc. They are called the biconcave. They are called the biconcave. Let's take a look at most conspicuous writing too. Okay, they are called the biconcave disc. Biconcave disc. Biconcave disc. Okay, so that's the red blood cells. But we're going to describe their functions. We're going to describe their function. We just describe their shape. We say they're round, and they have in the middle, it looks as if we've scratched them with our thumbs, and for that reason they are described as a biconcave disc. Their shape, they are described as a biconcave disc. Now the function. Now let's talk about the function. What they do. The functions of the red blood cells is to transport oxygen around the body. The function is to transport oxygen around the body. So we can easily state that transport transport oxygen around the body. That's the main job of the red blood cells. That's the main job of the red blood. Transport oxygen. Remember, the body cannot function properly without oxygen. The body cannot function properly without oxygen. So it is the job of the red blood cells to move oxygen around the body. Now, this oxygen, to transport oxygen around the body. Now, this oxygen is obtained from where? Where do the blood gets it? Where do red blood cells get this oxygen from? They get them from the alveolar part of the lungs. They get it from the lungs, the alveolar part. In the alveoli, the oxygen diffuses into the red blood cells. It diffuses into the red blood cells. Is that okay? So the first function of the red blood cells is to transport oxygen around the body. To transport oxygen around the body. That's the main function of the red blood cells, which we need to be very familiar with. And we've also talked about their shape. We say they have a biconcave, they look like a biconcave disc. They look like a biconcave disc. And we say they're small. They're one of the smallest cells in our body, and hence they do not have a nucleus. The red blood cells do not have a nucleus. No nucleus. As a cell, they're supposed to have a nucleus, but they're small and they're one of the smallest, so we say they do not have nucleus. The red blood cells do not have a nucleus. Or like the white blood cells. The white blood cells do have a nucleus. We're going to describe the white blood cells and the types of white blood cells, the leukocytes and the phagocytes. We're going to describe that. We're going to come to that. But let's complete the job of the red blood cells first. So we say the red blood cells, they do not have a nucleus. They are biconcave disc, and the primary job is to transport oxygen around the body. Their primary job is to transport oxygen around the body. Now, in order for them to be able to do this, they're filled with the red protein called the hemoglobin. We need to talk about the hemoglobin. In order for these guys to be able to do this job, they're filled with a protein called hemoglobin. Okay? Hemoglobin. Let's write hemoglobin. 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 Is a protein molecule. Hemoglobin is a protein molecule. Okay? So in order for the red blood cells to transport, in order for them to transport the oxygen around the body, they first of all filled with the protein called the hemoglobin. Now, as the blood passes through the lungs, the oxygen from the alveoli will diffuse from the lungs. The oxygen, remember, when we breathe in, the oxygen goes into our lungs. When we breathe in, oxygen goes into our lung. That part of the lungs is called the alveoli. It's like a storage place for the oxygen. Now, when we breathe in, the oxygen goes into our lungs in a special part of the lungs called the alveoli, which looks like an air sac where the oxygen is. And now that oxygen will diffuse into the red blood cells. We'll be able to diffuse across the membrane, okay, the alveoli membrane into the red blood cells, okay? And when that happens, there is a protein molecules that will help to carry this oxygen. There is a protein molecule in the red blood cells that carries this oxygen to the rest of the body tissues, to the rest of the body cells and tissues, in order for the job and the functionality to be established and determined. Is that okay? So we said the oxygen diffuses from the alveoli into the red blood cells. Now, when that happens, then it will combine with the hemoglobin to form what we call the oxygen will combine with hemoglobin. Let's say oxygen plus hemoglobin plus, or let's say hemoglobin plus oxygen, we'll get oxyhemoglobin. Now, the blood that moves in our body is called the oxyhemoglobin. Okay? Oxy plus oxygen is called oxyhemoglobin. So hemoglobin, which is a protein molecule in the red blood cells, we combine the oxygen. The oxygen will stick with it. The oxygen will stick with the hemoglobin to get what we call the oxyhemoglobin. Now, this oxyhemoglobin molecule will move in the blood. We move in the blood till it's given to the body cells and body tissue. Oxyhemoglobin. Okay, and oxyhemoglobin term is formed, or molecule is formed, that moves oxyhemoglobin. Hemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin. Okay, and oxyhemoglobin. Okay, we say the oxygen will combine with the hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. Now, as the blood passes through the lungs, oxygen diffuses to form the oxyhemoglobin. We've already established this, right? Now, as the blood passes through the tissues, after it leaves the lungs, after it joins with the hemoglobin to become oxyhemoglobin, as it passes through the tissues, what will happen? The oxyhemoglobin will release the oxygen to the tissues of the body cell, or either the tissues or the cells of the body. The oxyhemoglobin, which has become one term now, which has become one big family of hemoglobin and oxygen, will help to release the oxygen molecule or oxygen part of itself to the tissues, to the body tissues. Remember, tissues are a group of cells. The tissues in our body are a group of cells packed together, doing specialized functions, doing specific work, doing the same thing. Group of cells that are similar and they're doing the same specific function are called tissues, right? Now, when this oxyhemoglobin moves in the body tissue, when it leaves the heart or when it leaves the lungs, from the time it leaves the lung, as it goes to the heart, it releases some of this oxyhemoglobin releases some oxygen to the heart. It moves again from the heart to the rest of the body tissues or cells, where through the help of the networks of capillary, it releases this oxygen to the tissues of the body. It releases this oxygen to the tissues of the body, leaving behind only the hemoglobin, leaving behind only the hemoglobin in the red blood cells, leaving behind only the hemoglobin in the red blood cells. So it releases the oxygen and then it becomes hemoglobin again, only hemoglobin. Once this oxygen is released, it no longer oxyhemoglobin. It releases the oxygen to the body cells or the body tissues, to the body cells or the body tissues. So leaving behind only the hemoglobin. Then the hemoglobin again goes back to inside the red blood cells and goes back to the heart, then from the heart to the lungs again, and then picks up oxygen again. Okay, so this is the job of the red blood cells. The red blood cells is like the transport, is like the mechanism through which this and it contains a protein called the hemoglobin, which when the blood diffuses from the alveoli into these red blood cells, it sticks with the protein hemoglobin in the red blood cells. So the job of the red blood cells is to ensure the carriage of oxygen. This is made so, or this can happen because it has a protein molecule called the hemoglobin, which can stick with the oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. Is that okay? Now we say the released oxygen diffuses out of the red blood cells. The oxygen that you're releasing now from the red blood, from this oxyhemoglobin, will diffuse out of the red blood cells to the body tissues, right? And to the body cells. The released oxygen will diffuse out of the red blood cells through what? Now, it will pass through what? One, it will pass through the plasma, the liquid part of the blood. The released oxygen will pass through the plasma. So we write what it's going to pass through. It will pass through the plasma. The released oxygen will pass through the plasma, the liquid part of the blood. Remember, the plasma is mostly liquid, mostly water, but it contains other nutrients it contains the oxygen itself, It contains the carbon dioxide, the nutrient like the vitamins, the whatever, the mineral ions such as sodium, chlorine, whatever. It contains all of this, the liquid plasma. Okay, it carries all of this. Okay, now let's say, so the released oxygen, let's focus on that part. The released oxygen passes, when it's released from the red blood cells, when it's not leaving the red blood cells, it will pass through what? First, it will pass through the plasma, the liquid parts of the blood. It will pass through the plasma and then also through the walls of the blood capillaries into the tissues. So it passes through the plasma and also pass through the walls of the capillary. Walls of the capillary. Walls of the capillary. So it will pass through the plasma, the released oxygen from the red blood cells. We pass through the plasma and also we pass through the walls of the capillary. Okay, so then it will now enter the tissues. The tissues are a group of specialized cells that are performing specific tasks in your body. Okay, groups of similar cells that are doing the same job in your body. Okay, so it will pass through the walls of the capillaries to the tissue, to the tissues, to the tissues. Okay, so we can use it interchangeably. We can use tissues or cells, but let's stick with these tissues. Okay, to the tissues in our body. So first of all, the oxygen, which is oxyhemoglobin, we leave the hemoglobin, we leave the oxyhemoglobin, diffuses out, passes through the plasma, and then passes through the walls of the capillary to the tissues of our body. Is that okay? So this is how the job of the red blood cells. It carries oxygen because it's able to do this because itself contains hemoglobin, the protein molecule called the hemoglobin, which can stick with oxygen and move the oxygen to every part of the body cells or tissues of the body. Now, this is possible because the red blood cells contains what? Because the red blood cells contains what we call the hemoglobin. The red blood cell contains a protein molecule called the hemoglobin. If the red blood cells do not have hemoglobin, probably maybe it wouldn't be able or easily be able to carry the oxygen around the body. Is that okay? Now, hemoglobin, first of all, the color of the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is, let's use, let me just choose a different color. Hemoglobin is, the hemoglobin itself, it's a bluish red. So we can say it's bluish red. This is the color of the hemoglobin. Okay, bluish. Hemoglobin is bluish red. Bluish red. Bluish red. Hemoglobin is bluish red. The oxyhemoglobin is what? Oxyhemoglobin is bright red. The oxyhemoglobin is bright red. Bright red. So the oxyhemoglobin is bright red. So when the oxygen leaves the hemoglobin, then it goes back to its bluish reddish color. When the oxygen diffuses out of the oxyhemoglobin, then it goes back to its bluish reddish color. Is that okay? So it means our blood changes color. Our blood changes color. When oxygen is with hemoglobin, it's a bright red. Then when the oxygen diffuses out of it, it becomes a bluish red again. It becomes bluish red again. But when oxygen is in it, it's combined with the hemoglobin, it's a bright red. So our blood, it shows our blood changes color. Now let's go to the second part of the components of the blood called the white blood cells. The second one is called the white blood cells. The second one is the white blood cells. White blood cells. These cells are larger than the red blood cells. They're larger than the red blood cells. Hence, they have a nucleus. They have a nucleus. They have nucleus. Okay? The white blood cells are larger than the red blood cells, and hence they have nucleus. Now, they can easily be distinguished from the red blood cells. The white blood cells can easily be distinguished from the red blood cells. Because, why? They are larger. We already established that. Because they are larger, and also they have a nucleus. Also, the fact that they have a nucleus. So you can easily distinguish the red blood cells from the white blood cells. Now, the white blood cells, they're a very important part of the body's defense system. Very important part. In fact, this is their main function. Okay? This is their main function. The body defense system. Defense. Like the way you have military to defend a country. Okay? The white blood cells, they are like the military of the body. They are like the military of the body called the human body. They are very important for the defense system. To defend you against bacteria, against virus, against any other invader, or any general terminology called the pathogens. Okay, they defend our body against all pathogens that are disease-causing organisms in our body. So the white blood cells are very, very super important. They're super important in our defense system. They're super important in our defense system. They help to defend us against bacteria. They defend our body against bacteria. They defend our body against viruses. And they defend us against any invader. Okay? Organisms like this type, like the virus, the bacteria, and any other invaders, they are called the pathogens. Okay? They are called the pathogens. They defend us against pathogen. So we can just use that general term. We can use that general term called pathogen against pathogen. Pathogen are disease-causing organisms. They are disease-causing organisms. They cause various diseases in our body. Pathogens are disease-causing organisms. They cause different and various diseases in our body. They make us sick. Pathogens, they make us sick. So the job of the white blood cells is to defend the body against these pathogens, like virus in the body, bacteria in the body, any kind of invader that can cause you sickness. The pathogens, which are called pathogens, are defended by the white blood cells. Okay? Now the white blood cells are categorized into two. They are grouped into two. Let's itemize that. They are grouped into two. The first one is called phagocyte. The first one. The first one is called the phagocyte. The first one is called the phagocyte. Okay, sorry. Phagocyte. The first one is called the phagocytes. Okay? Phagocytes. Okay, now the first type of the white blood cells is called phagocyte. Phagocyte is pH, okay? Phagocytes. Phagocytes. That's the first part of the white blood cells. Now, these phagocytes, what they do is that they crawl out of the white blood cell. They crawl around into different parts of the body. They crawl, like the way baby crawl. Okay, the phagocyte, they crawl. This word, they crawl around the different parts of the body. They crawl. Crawl. L. Okay, they crawl around the different parts of the body, just the way the babies used to crawl around the house. Now, if they meet any foreign cells like the bacterium or the virus or any of these foreign, like any pathogen, if they meet any pathogen cells, any foreign cells that the body they don't know about, then they will clutch them. They will put their fingers of their cytoplasm around it, and then they will close it in their vacuum. They will use their fingers from their cytoplasm. They will use it to clip round the pathogen, and they will close it into their vacuum. Okay, so we measure two words in the cells, body cells, their cytoplasms. So they will clip the foreign agent that they don't know about, like the bacterium or the virus. When they crawl around, when they see the phagocytes, when they crawl around and they see any foreign body like the pathogens that they don't know, they will use their fingers from their cytoplasm to clinch them and enclose them into their vacuum. Okay, and then they will kill them. Okay, they crawl around, they close them. We can write all the words. They crawl around, they close them with their finger from their cytoplasm, and then they close them into their vacuum, and then they kill them. Okay, so that's how the phagocytes operate. That's how the phagocytes, they're killers. They are the main military in the defense system. They're super killers. When they crawl around, they move around the body, they check your body system. If they see any pathogen, any disease-causing organisms, they will close them with their fingers from their cytoplasms. Okay? They will close them with their fingers from their cytoplasms and close them into their vacuum. They will put them into their vacuum and kill them there. Okay? There are different, they kill them there. Okay? So that's how they operate. They kill them there. Now, this is called phagocytosis. When they do this, the process is called phagocytosis. Okay? They kill. We say they kill. And the process is called kill the foreign agent that they don't know of in the body system. Because they already learned the entire body system. So when they see foreign agent, they kill them. And that process is called phagocytosis. So in a process called phagocytosis. A process called phagocytosis. Cytosis, depending on how you want to call it. And a process known as phagocytosis. Okay, so the process whereby the phagocytes crawl out and close any foreign agent and with their fingers from their cytoplasm and close them in their vacuum and kill them. That process is called phagocytosis. Now let's talk about the second type of the defense system, the second type of the white blood cells. The second type of the white blood cell is called the lymphocyte. Lymphocyte. The second type is called the lymphocyte. The second type of the white blood cell is called the lymphocyte. Remember, the first one is a phagocyte. The second one is called the lymphocyte. You should know the names and the job, the functionality. Okay, the second type is the lymphocyte. Now, what is the job or the functions of the lymphocyte? Okay, the lymphocyte, they kill pathogens by secreting chemicals called the antibodies. They kill pathogen by secreting chemical called the antibodies. They kill pathogen by releasing a chemical called the antibodies. Pathogens. They kill pathogens, okay, by releasing what? Antibodies. In their case, they secrete a chemical called the antibodies. By releasing a chemical called the antibodies. Antibodies. By releasing a chemical called the antibodies. So once they do this, they're able to kill them. But sometimes this may not be enough. The chemical may not be able to kill the strong bacteria or strong virus. So if they're not able to kill them directly, then they will make it easy for the phagocytes to kill them. You know, the chemical will weaken the antibodies will weaken the foreign bodies, will weaken the pathogens so that the phagocytes can kill them. So if they're not able to, the lymphocyte, if they're not able to kill the pathogens directly by secreting a chemical called the antibodies, then the chemical will weaken these pathogens and make it easy for phagocytes to kill them. Phagocytes will now, phagocytes are crawling around. Phagocytes will come in contact with them and kill them. So it's either they kill the lymphocyte, either they kill the pathogens directly, or by secreting a chemical known as the antibody, or they make it easy for they weaken the disease or the pathogens and make it easy for the phagocytes to kill them. Okay? They make it easy for the phagocytes to kill them. So that's that. Now let's go to the third one, which is the platelet. The third one is called the platelet. The third one is called the platelet. Okay, the third and fourth, they are short. Let's make it short quickly. The platelet. The third component of the blood is called the platelet. Platelet. Platelets. Okay, now let's quickly take a look at what is platelet and what they do. Now the third components of the blood are called the platelet. The platelets are tiny cells fragments that can flow in blood plasma. They are tiny, they can flow in blood plasma. Okay? They can flow in the blood plasma. Remember, the plasma is the liquid part of the blood. They do not have a nucleus because they're very tiny. They do not have a nucleus, super tiny. Okay, they don't have a nucleus. What is their job then? What do they do? Why are they part of the blood? Their role or their job is to help the blood to clot when the blood vessel is damaged. Clothing. So their job is just clothing. So I just want to use one word to summarize this: clothing. Their job is to clot the blood when the tissue is damaged. Clothing. 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 Is to help to clot the blood when the blood vessel is damaged or when the tissue is damaged. Now, what do we mean by this? Their job is to clot the blood when the blood vessel is damaged. Let's say, for example, you cut your hand or any part of your body with a knife or with any object, and blood starts to gush out, ooze out. When the blood oozes out, then it is the job of the platelet to secrete substance to clot the blood, to make the blood thicken, to make it thicken and make it stop flowing out, to make it thicken and make it stop flowing out. So the sole job of the platelet is to secrete a substance to clot the blood, to clot the blood whenever the blood vessel is damaged and blood is gushing out of our body. Okay, so we just summarize this like this. Now let's go to the fourth and the last one for this class, which is called the plasma. The plasma. This is the big part of the blood, which is a liquid and is mostly water, and in fact more than 80% of this is water. Okay, more than 80% of the plasma is water. The other things in the plasma are the organic substances that dissolve in it. Okay, the blood plasma is a pale yellow. The color is a pale or pale, depends on how you call this. Pale yellow. The color. Okay. Okay, it's a pale yellow liquid. Pale yellow liquid. Okay, the plasma is a liquid. It's a liquid part of the blood. The plasma is the liquid part of the blood. Take note of this. So it's a pale yellow liquid. The plasma is a pale yellow liquid. Okay, and it's mostly water. It's mostly water. Okay, but it has other substances that do dissolve in the water. It has other substances that dissolve in water. A good example is glucose. So what the plasma contains, we itemize some of them. One is glucose. It contains the glucose. But before we say glucose, I think we should measure the water, because it's mostly water. Okay, we can say one is water. This is two. One should be water. It's mostly water. Then it contains other substances such as glucose. Okay, glucose we get from amino acid. Remember amino acid, the one we get from protein, the digested unit, smallest unit of protein is amino acid. Contains glucose, which is from our carbohydrate. Okay, the smallest unit of carbohydrate. Amino acid from protein, it contains amino acids. Okay, they are all dissolved in the liquid plasma. Okay, and then other substances may be mineral ions. Okay, mineral ions and vitamins, all of these things, they are also in it. Inorganic ions such as sodium and chloride and hormones and carbon dioxide and even our urea, we need to measure some of them. Okay, mineral ions, let's measure mineral ions and then we list them. Okay, and then we stop here. Okay, after this we stop here. Mineral ion. The liquid plasma also contains the mineral ions or inorganic ions. You know, inorganic minerals. You can say inorganic minerals. Inorganic. They are not the organic. The organic ones are the amino acid, the glucose. Okay, the inorganic ones, okay, they also contain them. Like the sodium and chlorides, e.g. sodium. So sodium, can we use the symbol in chemistry, Na, like sodium, chloride. Okay, I use the symbol of chlorine for chloride. Okay, chloride. Okay, it contains sodium chloride. Then it contains hormones. You know, this part of the blood contains hormones, the different hormones. Okay, hormones. And then it also contains urea. Hormones. Then it also contains what we call urea. So So all these things are found in the liquid part of the blood called the plasma. The liquid part of the blood called the plasma. All these are found there. Okay, so we stop here. Okay. Just one more thing, one last thing to talk about. The blood plasma carries the substances from place to place in our body. The blood plasma carries different substances from place to place in our body. The blood plasma carries all these substances from place to place in our body. It also contains soluble proteins called the plasma protein. It contains another thing called the plasma protein. It contains another substance called the plasma proteins. Now this protein, they are needed for blood clotting. These proteins are needed for blood clotting. And a good example is called the fibrinogen. The fibrinogen, they are used for clotting. They are the protein that are found in the liquid plasma that helps in the clotting of blood. Fibrinogen. You can find this in IGCSE exam. Fibrinogen. Fibrinogen is the protein substance in the liquid plasma that helps in the clotting of blood. So thank you very much. I think this is where you should know what fibrinogen is. It's for clotting of blood. It's a protein substance that is found in the liquid plasma that helps in the clotting of blood. So with this, we come to the end of our today's class. Thank you, and thank you very much.